The benefits of Brexit. I've read through this 101-page government document and I thought you might like to hear something about it. My name's Mike Cashman. If you find this useful, please subscribe to the channel Britannia Waves the Rules. So here we are. This document came out in January 2022. You might think that's a little bit late, it's 2 years after Brexit. But on the other hand, some people might say, well, over that 2 years, there's been the coronavirus pandemic, so maybe they've been a little bit busy to put this together. That's not the point. Identifying the benefits of something should be done before you decide to do it. Who says so? The government, in their programme management guidance. There is no prior document. This is the start. We do have the vote leave promises. We'll look back at those at the end because you might assume that Boris Johnson has some accountability for delivering those, but let's just focus on this document. So, has an introduction by the Prime Minister. The act of Brexit was not an end in itself, but the means by which our country will achieve great things. But we're really not very clear about what those great things are. Because you see, a benefit should be something of value, something that you want, which might be financial, might be in the area of health or environment. But it's not just the spending of money, it's not just the writing of a strategy, it's not just a set of slogans, it's not just changing regulations, it's not just waffle, it should be delivering something that is actually worth working to achieve. And against that criteria, 90% of this document, at a conservative estimate, falls away. However, let's look at what it actually delivers. Now, it starts off with our achievements so far. We've ended free movement, restored democratic control, restored the UK Supreme Court as the final arbiter of the law, though they're trying to weaken its powers. There were 14 achievements so far under taking back control. For example, committed 180 million to modernise and streamline our import and export controls by creating the single trade window. Remember that I said a benefit is not just the spending of money. We've given UK regulators the ability and the resources to make sovereign decisions about globally significant mergers. This is supposed to be achievement so far. That's just regulation. We've launched and are undertaking reviews of the status and substance of retained EU law. Many of those who supported Brexit, interviewed on the evening of Britain's departure, were asked, so what difference will this make to you? And some of them came out on the BBC with things like, this is wonderful because we'll get our lives back now, and were unable to articulate in what ways their lives would change. Now, if we said to those people, we've launched and are undertaking reviews of the status and substance of retained EU law, do you think that would make a big difference to them? I'm not convinced. But anyway, I can't list them all. There are 14 achievements so far, but here are the last three. Reintroduced our iconic blue passports, reviewing the EU ban on imperial markings and sales, so you can sell in pounds and ounces now, enabling businesses to use a crown stamped symbol on pint glasses. So out of 14 they've chosen, 3 are those ones that have been widely mocked as not delivering anything of any real value. Let's get to our money. Now, is this something more substantial? 57 billion more for our NHS. By the 2024-2025 financial year, our yearly expenditure on our NHS is projected to be £57 billion higher in cash terms than we spent in 2016-17. So I thought, OK, that sounds quite impressive. Let's look at the actual figures. So I looked at the King's Fund, the NHS budget, and how it's changed. The earlier figure was 135.7 billion, later figure 176.4 billion. So apparently a 40 billion increase until you apply inflation to the 2016-2017 figure. So I took inflation so far, assumed the next 3 years will be similar to the 3 we just had, and that earlier figure came up to 169.7 billion, so almost 170. 6.7 billion is therefore the actual increase from that to the 2024-25 figure. So that's a real increase of about 0.5% per year. A real increase anyway of 7 billion, much less than the 57 billion, much less than was talked about on the side of the bus. And remember, in order to get that, we've had the increase in national insurance, which is turning into the health and social care levy. But what else? We're reforming and simplifying our public procurement so the public sector can buy more local goods and services. Except the actual way that that's been deployed has been to give contracts to Tory cronies and donors. The 4.8 billion levelling up fund is bigged up here, fairly similar in size to the EU fund, but of course the levelling up fund we know gives priority to Tory constituencies as incentive for people to vote Tory, unlike the bureaucratic EU fund, which allocated money according to need. We have, this is still achievements so far, backing our businesses. There's a whole load of achievements here which are not achievements at all. They are all talking about reviewing, changing rules. They're all talking about things that might have a difference in the future. Reviewing the framework for standard essential patents. We have launched a call for views to understand how our intellectual property system supports British innovation. So this is all in the supposedly achievements so far. But that's just initial steps, taking that example. And actually, nearly all of those in the backing our businesses section. There might be an actual benefit here. So under car insurance, so if you want it, by removing the European Court of Justice extension of motor insurance to private land and a greater range of vehicles, that could save a potential increase in insurance premiums of about around £50 a year. So if I understand that right, maybe your insurance premium won't go up by £50, but you won't be insured when you're in Asda car park or a car park at an event. Personally, I think I might prefer to be insured, but, whatever. This is under support for people and families, providing life-changing experiences through the Turing scheme, not mentioning that it's worse than the Erasmus scheme that has been scrapped as far as the UK is concerned. We may have another actual benefit here. The new petrol and diesel cars can't be sold in the UK after 2030, as opposed to 2035 in the EU. So, okay, we might have one there. We get in this way up to page 19, and these are all supposedly the achievements so far. And I suspect thought, well, that's not enough. We need 100 pages. Tell you what, all that stuff which has been current and future, but let's call all that achievements so far. Let's see if we can put in a dozen pages or so on the best regulated economy in the world. And so there's a whole lot of stuff about the principles of regulation. And it really boils down to some assumption that divergence is going to be beneficial. Now, in general, I would say having standard products and standard approaches across the world tends to be beneficial for business. It increases the size of your market. It's not always the case, but it certainly doesn't follow that divergence is automatically beneficial. But all these pages are written really as if divergence is a good thing. What's the benefit from what we're doing here? Oh, divergence. Well, how's that going to benefit us? Well, we're only going to diverge where there are benefits to be achieved. Well, what sort of benefits are you thinking of? Well, divergence. And how's that a benefit? Well, if it's not a benefit, then we won't diverge. So all the divergence that we do will be a benefit. It's a rather circular argument. The thing is, if somebody tries to persuade me, for example, to move house and says, Mike, why don't you move to that more remote location? And I say to them, well, why should I do that? And they say, well, you can get full fibre broadband there. I might say, well, I can get full fibre broadband where I am here as well. But there you're further from the station, so you'd be generating economic activity for taxi drivers. Yeah, but that's not a benefit for me. And you would be freed from your neighbourhood watch scheme that you're in at the moment, so you could make your own arrangements for security. See, the thing is, if somebody comes to me with those sort of arguments, then I'm going to think three things. Firstly, none of those things are benefits to me. Secondly, do you think I'm an idiot? And thirdly, I'm disinclined to listen to you much further, because I suspect there are no benefits for what you're suggesting, because if you had some real benefits, you would have come up with those rather than bothering me with this rubbish. And that's where I am with this document. So let's get through divergence and on to a world of future opportunities, or pie in the sky, as somebody has called it. Now, there's a series of sections here which are all a similar structure. And what they do is tell you in each case quite a bit in numbers about what's being achieved at the moment. So professional services, for example. Professional business services, this sector accounted for 211 billion gross added value in 2020, 11% of gross value added, 4.7 million jobs, representing 13% of the UK workforce. Provides 35% of the UK's total services exports. UK is the second greatest exporter of business services after the US, with £116 billion of exports in 2020. Now, that's all before Brexit has had any impact. In 2020, we're in the transition period. Now, it's fair enough to provide some baseline figures if you're then going to go on and say, as a result of Brexit, let's look at how those figures change. But there's none of that. Those are the only numbers that you get. It's a little bit as if somebody says, well, my shop's turning over £80,000 at the moment, so I'm going to relocate it to this other place. Why? Well, maybe I'll turn over a much greater amount. What would your reason for doing that be? Oh, well, I don't know. I can sell in pounds and ounces. I think my next question would be, are you mentally ill? What is the point of doing something without any justification? So anyway, the world of future opportunities occupies this document from page 34 through to the end in many different sectors. There is one bit actually which I did think was a little bit of a joke. I talked about increased focus on post-implementation review. So that's, we did this, did it work? And impact assessment, which is, we're thinking of doing this. What will that result in? Since Brexit is probably the biggest change ever undertaken without a proper impact assessment and resisting any post-implementation review because it's an article of faith, then that, as I say, is a little bit rich. Culture, the creative industries. Our culture, media and sport play a vital role in the UK economy. Creative industries contributed 115 billion to the UK economy in 2019. Yes, well, that's going to go down when brands can't tour in Europe anymore. And some of these things have nothing to do with the EU as far as we can make out, as far as I can make out. We want to make sure transport is inclusive for all, including giving people in urban, rural areas greater choice and freedom to get around. Yes, and was the EU stopping any improvements in that area? We've even got a reference to HS2, benefit of Brexit for HS2, not having to comply with EU standards. HS2 platforms can be designed to be as passenger-friendly as possible with level step-free access to promote accessibility. Now, I don't know the full detail here, but HS2 has been going for a while, and, whether you agree with it or not, I don't think the EU was insisting on having steps on the approach to HS2. I seem to remember that for the 2012 Olympics there was lots of step-free access put in tube stations around London, and I didn't see the EU opposing that at any point. Roads. Identifying and reducing frictions in our supply chains is a benefit of Brexit, except the reality is that friction has been increased, as the queues in Dover indicate. What else? Improvements in planning law. I don't think the EU was stopping changes in planning law. Oh, the Levelling Up Fund, as I say, which we know is benefiting Tory constituencies more than others. Migration, taking back control of our borders. So we can now have our own migration policy, except we know that doing so has been very damaging and has left us short of many key occupations. Ambitious trade policy with our ability to make trade deals across the world. Oh, We're opening negotiations on new trading arrangements with Israel, Canada and Mexico. Yeah, there was another reference to our key focus areas of Dubai and Colombia. We're going to strengthen our ability for an independent sanctions regime. So that, I suppose, would be worrying Russia. And there's a conclusion which I used to advise people on how to write effective summaries or conclusions, and key message always was get the headlines in there. Don't just make it a contents page. Don't just make it say there's more information in the rest of the paper. A newspaper front page has got the headlines on. The conclusion doesn't manage that. One gem I did want to share from within here. This is on the digital economy. And you know, maybe this is fair enough, but I'm just surprised they put it in. The UK's digital economy is thriving, with 26 billion invested in UK tech in 2021, 35% of the total investment in tech across Europe this year. The number of UK tech unicorns also grew significantly last year, seeing an additional 29 companies valued at over $1 billion. Now, that may be fair enough. Can't quite envisage that anybody senior would read through this and then say, "You said there were going to be more unicorns." You can't say that. But maybe nobody really reviewed it. We could, as I say, look at what Vote Leave promised. Politico has done a rundown of that. 1, trade with the EU will be tariff-free and involve minimal bureaucracy. It doesn't. 2, Northern Ireland border absolutely unchanged. Not the case. 3, end supremacy of EU law and the EU's Court of Justice. Well, whatever you think of that was not achieved because they still have a role in Northern Ireland. Take back control on immigration, cut migration to the tens of thousands. They haven't. Britain will take back control of its fisheries, but we discovered that it mattered where we have to sell it. 350 million for the NHS instead of being sent to Brussels. Not achieved, as we discussed. New trade deals, access to a European trading zone from Iceland to Russia. But do we have any trade deals that offer advantages over what we had before when we were part of the EU? Emily Thornberry demolished Liz Truss's claim that the Japan trade deal was an advantage. It was an advantage over WTO rules, not over what we had before. And so it goes on. Wages will be higher. The union strong on energy bills. Scrap VAT on sanitary products. We achieved that one. New treaty should be ready within 2 years, which would be, well, now these were the Vote Leave campaign, so that would be the new treaty by 2018. Overall, as I say, 90% of it not benefits, and it's no surprise that 2 years on from leaving the EU, scratching around to try and work out what the benefits could be, that a minister's been appointed Minister for Brexit Opportunities. You remember David Frost tried to recruit somebody as Director of Opportunities. That clearly wasn't successful. Jacob Rees-Mogg apparently does not realise that he's been given the booby prize job, the job with the title that sounds nice but is bound to fail. And this document is 100 pages of a collection of things that are not real benefits, things that are not because of leaving the EU, total pie in the sky, and ideas for divergence which wouldn't necessarily help us anyway. So there you are, the benefits of Brexit. If you want to, you can read the 101 pages, but I suggest you don't bother. I'm Mike Cashman. Please subscribe to the channel. Britannia waves the rules. Thank you.